Welcome back. Today, we'll watch Singapore's top lawyer politicians grill people. And we'll learn 3 techniques to win arguments. In 2018, social media regulation was a big buzzword around the world. Privacy and national security concerns abounded. The Singapore government summoned Facebook. Let's hear Law Minister K. Shanmugam ask a question.
October 31, TechCrunch. It says, Stretch, along with counsel from both Twitter and Google, were criticized as being non-committal in some of their answers, including on the issue of banning foreign currency in political ads. Would you accept that as an accurate characterization?
That was only a 15-second clip, but it's clear that Shanmugam is well prepared. It also isn't obvious why Shanmugam is asking the question, so I wouldn't be confident answering it.
I'd actually like to speak to the chair at this point. This committee is looking into the issue of deliberate online falsehoods here in Singapore. I don't think it's fair to ask me detailed questions about evidence given by my colleague to a different parliament in a different country about activities associated with that country. And I really would like the chairman to consider whether this line of questioning is appropriate.
Milner didn't see the point behind the question either. But when you're talking to one of Singapore's top lawyer politicians, it's probably better not to react so defensively. They might see something you don't. Let's see how Shanmugam explains himself.
The questions before the UK Parliament were very relevant in exploring the degree to which a government of Singapore can depend on Facebook to tell us the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in proceedings where the witnesses are sworn, or whether you will do everything you can to give lawyers' answers or lawyered answers.
Wow, what a great comeback. Milner clearly didn't see this coming. And there's more.
And the very first time you accepted responsibility for Cambridge Analytica publicly, when did that happen? And why did that not happen earlier? And to what extent can we take seriously all these protestations that you can be completely trusted to apply your internal guidelines?
Shanmugam elaborates with a concrete example where things have gone wrong. 87 million Facebook users' data were harvested without their consent. Given the scale of the Cambridge Analytica scandal, it's hard to ignore it.
And if you thought that you could turn up here today, not answer questions on Cambridge Analytica, and explain your answers today with your answers less than 5 weeks ago to a different parliament.
Notice that Shanmugam is soft-spoken. In fact, I'd say that Milner speaks more aggressively than him. You don't need to speak aggressively to be a top lawyer or politician. Yes, you don't need to be aggressive to be feared.
Why are we looking at these answers? We are looking at our national security.
Shanmugam is narrowing in for the kill. He shows how his pointed and specific example relates to a broader point: Singapore's national security.
And you have confirmed you will not take down something simply because it is false. You will take it down if there is a legal obligation on you. And you will prefer to be regulating yourself with your internal guidelines, and that you do not want to be regulated. In that context, we are asking you these questions.
Shanmugam nails down the case for regulation. In his opinion, Facebook generally won't take down falsehoods. Hence the need for laws to regulate certain falsehoods. Given Shanmugam's answer, Milner's initial response seems a bit embarrassing. Perhaps Milner could have asked, "What's the point behind your question?" This would have bought him more time and allowed him to figure out the point behind Shanmugam's question. Alternatively, Milner could simply have said politely that he wasn't at the UK Parliament hearing, so he couldn't answer Shanmugam's question. Shanmugam's technique is simple. He broke his case down into 4 parts. He tried to make each part difficult to argue against, and his opponent made things easier for him. If you can figure out the point behind a question, you can answer it more effectively. Let's see an example. In 2021, Workers' Party MP Raeesah Khan admitted to lying in Parliament and resigned. Ruling Party MP Edwin Tong questioned Workers' Party Chief Pritam Singh. Did Mr. Singh try to cover up the lie? Singh tried to distance himself from Khan, saying that Khan lied repeatedly. Let's listen to the exchange between Singh and Tong.
So why would she go to the senior leadership of Workers' Party and then lie in a closed forum to her own associates who are helping her about your reaction?
Mr.
How
Tong,
would that help her?
This is a reasonable question, but it's also easy to tell the point behind the question. If Mr. Singh comes up with an explanation, Mr. Tong will try to discredit it.
I cannot answer how it would help her. I can only tell you what she told us in what I told her, what was communicated in my house on the 8th of August. And this rendition of what has happened is a complete, utter fabrication. It's a lie. It's
Okay.
a bare lie.
Mr. Singh sees Mr. Tong's strategy. So instead of directly answering Mr. Tong, he simply repeats his belief that Khan lied and says that he can't elaborate any further, which is a reasonable answer. After all, who can read Khan's mind? Sometimes it can be good to simply say that you can't answer a question. The best answers grill the questioner. In 1997, a BBC reporter interviewed Lee Kuan Yew, the first Prime Minister of Singapore.
All the criticism that Singapore has had, what effect does that have on you?
It's part of life. I read it. Sometimes I take note of it. I improve. Look at Singapore. Would anybody be interested in Singapore if it were a failure?
Lee ends his answer with a question. What underlies the question? The idea that Singapore is by and large a success. Can the interviewer refute this idea? If not, the success outweighs the criticism. I don't know if there's a name for Lee's technique, so I'll call it question the question. What does the question mean? Does it really prove what the questioner is trying to prove?
What about the opposition party? They're not particularly happy with it. Singapore, they call it.
The interviewer gets more specific. Lee repeats his technique.
They get a chance every 4 to 5 years. They get a chance every meeting of Parliament. The cameras are there. If there was such a marvelous proposition, I would have been tossed out years ago.
Lee again questions the question. The opposition is unhappy, but what do voters prefer? Lee isn't asking any question directly, but his point is clear.
It's one of the few countries where people have the right to toss a government out, and they have not done so. Despite all that the West have said, nobody has said that we've been stuffing the ballot papers in, not even our meanest enemies.
Lee nips counter-arguments in the bud by making a point. Singapore's critics have said many things, but electoral fraud isn't one of them. The interviewer moves on to a different subject. Let's see Lee repeat his tactic.
Would you say that over the 31 years as you were Prime Minister that you were a ruthless man?
Do I look to you a ruthless man? Here I am being pilloried, excoriated,
By whom?
abused by you.
It's merely the start of a verbal duel.
Merely ask questions, I thought.
No, but every one of them is barbed and loaded.
I'd like to think that you were given a chance to answer any question that
not
was
at-
put to you.
The weapons are out. Lee turns the table and throws the killer punch.
If I were a ruthless man, I would get you into a corner and say, now, let me ask you some questions. Why do you start with the assumption that your interviewee is always dumb? Why do you assume that Asians are somehow unable to understand Western ways of life, and that they would be so much better if they would become more like the West.
Wow! Lee again turned his answer into a pointed question. The interviewer now asked Lee to elaborate,
Do you think that's the attitude of people, Westerners, that you talk to?
which gives Lee a chance to promote his point of view.
Western interviewers, yes, but not all Westerners, because I've got many Western friends who know me very well, and we cease to look at each other as Easterners or Westerners.
I hope you learned a lot from this video. You don't need to be a lawyer or politician to win arguments. And you certainly don't need to be Singaporean. 3 techniques can help. Break things down into parts. What if you're being grilled? If you can't answer, just say so. If you can, grill the questioner. How? Question the question. Thanks for watching this video.